Hey everybody, welcome back to It's a Metal Thing. Today, fitting the drive line and setting the pinion angle. Let's do it. All right, so when I got my drivetrain kit from the parts farm, it came with the drive line out of the Mustang, but it's a two-piece and it wasn't gonna work for me. I was discussing it with my buddy, and he actually got online and was sniffing around and thought that maybe the Ford Explorer had a drive shaft that would work. It ended up being a 2006 2010 4.6 liter. It had an Explorer, had an independent rear suspension, but it still has a slip joint in it, and it was this one here. So that's the part number. I got this at Pick and Pull for like less than $100. So you can get them online. Different websites sell them. It was $418, but it had new Spicer U-joints and stuff. The problem was the front yoke wasn't gonna work with my M82. It would be good for the automatic that they have. It would probably work for you, but so I had to buy this. This is a Sonics piece. I think they're the only one that makes this piece with the 3-bolt flange that goes onto the M82. It has a 1350 U-joint that reduces down. I don't know what this is. This is like a 1320, or I don't know how they go. Anyway, we got that situated. The length is too long, so I'm going to eventually take these joints off, the U-joints out, and the flanges, and put it up, chuck it up on the lathe and cut this and get the length that I need. That's gonna be an issue. I'm gonna have to have it rebalanced, obviously. Or maybe I can move the weight down, I don't know. I'm gonna scribe a line on here to keep everything in line where it goes, the phasing and whatnot. I'll scribe a line, then we'll cut this loose and I'll figure out the length. The next step in this process is to get the rear end where it needs to be. Set the pinion angle or get it closer to where it needs to be. I was up underneath there measuring around. I'm at about it was 9.5 pinion angle on that. So I was 10, about right at 10 degrees drive shaft angle and 0.04 flange on the rear end. So I'm angled down. So I was watching a couple videos. There's Brian Wilson. He does rear suspension videos. He did a piece on leaf spring drag cars. He likes between 4 and 5 degrees. I don't really know that much about it. I'm gonna probably go off of what he says. So I'm gonna get underneath this thing. I'm going to, right now it's just sitting on the springs. They're lightly snugged. Rear end's in the center. It's everywhere it needs to be. I just need to adjust that pinion angle. Now that I have all the weight on the car, everything's in the car, sitting on the ground. It's really close to where it's gonna be. I have about 225 pounds in the back to simulate fuel and battery. The tire clearance is a little close. I'm not really gonna nail that down. I've said this like a bunch of times in all my videos if you're not watching. But if you are watching, you probably get tired of me saying it. The rear end is just tacked in for now. The suspension, the springs and all that are just tacked in for now. I'm gonna nail that all down once the car is pretty much built. That'll be like one of the last things I do, same thing on the front. So I'm gonna do right now, so I'm going to get up underneath there. I'm gonna loosen the U-bolts. I'm gonna jack that front pinion, get it up a few degrees, try to get it somewhere between 4 and 5 degrees, and then re-cinch it down. And then I'll probably, since I have to cut this down anyway, and I can't have these flopping around, I'm gonna take these U-joints off, take these flanges off, and I'll mount them to where they go, put this on the rear end, put that on the transmission, and then I'll have a real accurate measurement for my center to center on my U-joint, and that will determine my length on my driveline. So I'm gonna do that next. Got the flanges pushed off, pulled off, pressed off, put them on the car, took a measurement, 57 and 7/8. I wrote 15/16 because the driveline happens to be 60 and 15/16 from the center of the U-joint to the center of the U-joint. So I need to take 3 inches off of this thing. This will not fit in my buddy's lathe, so I'm gonna have to cut this with a cutoff wheel. Going to grind the weld flat and just take my time cutting around here. This is a billet piece, I'm sure. Has the spline slip joint in it. I'm sure it comes back here. So the tube slides over there for a nice fit. It's gonna be a little tricky getting it off, but I'm gonna take my time. Try not to do any damage to this, put any slices in or anything and weaken it. I'm gonna weld it all together, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So I need to draw a reference line first. Best way to get a straight line on a piece of round is with the angle iron sitting on here. Nice straight line. I'm going to bring this around, reference this weight. We'll draw a line on here to move this weight back 3 inches. So that way it'll be close to, I'm gonna get it, when it's all done, I'm going to take it and have it balanced just to double check and make sure, but at least that piece will be on there and it'll be close. So yeah, grind that weld down, take my time, whittle away at that weld and get that thing off there and try to keep it as clean as possible. So that's next. Change of plans. I took the spline out. And then I started cutting this. I'm getting in there a little more than I probably think I should. So I'm a little concerned about cutting into this and I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just take 3 inches off now. And then I can maybe split this and get it off here without doing any damage. So the best way I found to get a straight line around a piece of tubing is if you take a piece of paper and you get it wrapped up so that it lines up. If it's tight against the thing and it lines up, it's going to be round and straight. So I got this big piece of paper here. It's plenty long. Just wrap it around there, and if the edge lines up, then it's round and straight. And then you can scribe it, and then you can use that as your cut line. I'm going to come down here 3 inches, cut this off, and then I can split this and have it come off easier. Pretty good. I did get into it a little bit, a couple little spots, but not too bad. Yeah, I just cut that back, and cut it a long ways, and just knocked right off. So I'm going to take it down and clean the grease out. I'm gonna chuck it up in the lathe. I can put this in the lathe. It was just too long to run all the way through the lathe with this big tube. This will just be small enough. I'll clean this weld up and get it all smoothed up and trued up. And then come back and fit it into here and see what happens. 57 7/8. I took this part down. I put it in the lathe. I cleaned most of the old weld off. Got it real close. One side's touching, one side's not. So it's a little out of square, or a little out of round, but no big deal. Face this a little bit, put a little bit of a bevel in it. Quick tip, don't grind or clean your mark off. I almost did. You could barely see it, just like back here. So on my rear end video, I scribed the line, which is safe. So if you've degreased it or whatever, you can still see it. Another tip, when you're putting this in, it's a tight fit. It's almost like a press fit. I had to hammer it in with my plastic mallet there. Make sure this is lined up because it's hard to twist if you're not lined up. I was like just a little off and it was like an ordeal to get it lined up. So just pay attention to this going in, make sure it stays lined up. Another tip, this grease mark on the yoke and the driveline part, that's where the spline goes for the U-joint. There's no indexing on this spline. It can go any way. There's 32 splines. It can be in 32 positions. There's not a little cog in there. Just index it. So you got to pay attention to that when you're putting it back together. So hopefully watch the whole video before you start digging into it so this doesn't become an issue for you. I put a little scribe mark there. I could probably put a little scribe line here in case I ever take it apart again. But so now I got an idea of what I'm doing. Take that off of there, cut that off, drill it off, put it on here, and then put it back together. I don't know if I want to put it back together. I do. I need to put it back together. Putting those U-joints in and out, it's not good. I mean, for me anyway. It just seems like a lot of extra work. Anyway, gonna put it back together, stick it underneath here, check the pinion angle one more time so I can nail down that driveline angle and get this close to between 4 and 5 degrees. I don't know this guy from Adam. I don't know what his situation is. I might do some more research and check around and see what, I think this is more of a drag race setup than a street setup. But I think I'm close. So I'm going to, like I said, put it all in there, check everything out. Before I nail it down, I'm gonna do some more research. So get the driveline in, see where we're at. Driveline's back together. I put a new U-joint in the back. I have the new U-joint in the front from when I put the drive flange on, this M82, T28, whatever heck it is. Welded the Weight back on. It's a steel weight. I was kind of surprised. I don't know what I was thinking, but if it was aluminum, it'd have to be a lot bigger. So anyway, the rosette, the weld, plug weld, the weld that protrudes over the top is what holds the weight on. I tack welded this in place. I was doing some research on pinion angles. I was looking at some drag racing stuff. There's a guy named Kevin Wilson, I believe. Anyway, he's got a website or a YouTube page that he does. He's talking about pinion angle, and he wants it down a little bit from the, so like say you got 2 degrees down on the transmission, he maybe wants a level, because he's talking about 2 degrees of deflection when the rear end wraps, and he's trying to get that in a straight line. Ideally, he said, you know, drive line, everything would be in a straight line if you're under load. The problem that I have is my pinion or my driveline angle is so excessive, I can't really get away with that. I'm just gonna run it straight up. I'm running 2 degrees up on the pinion to match the 2 degrees down on the engine. And I mean, it's gonna be the best overall for just drivability and down the street, which is 99.99% of what this is gonna do. So to make any kind of crazy, unorthodox changes for a drag racing scenario wouldn't make sense. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this underneath there. I'm gonna bolt the front end up. I'm gonna put it up, hold it up, get the pinion angle where it needs to be, hold it up and see how much travel I have in that slip joint, and just double check and make sure that that's enough. So I'm gonna do that next. Drive shaft is in. I ended up with about 1 inch of travel on the spline. I pulled that boot back. I could see where the original mark was, where it rode. This came out of a Explorer with an independent rear suspension, so the center section was fixed, so it didn't get a lot of movement. I'm about 1/4 inch from that wear mark on there, so I think I have plenty. There's plenty of engagement. There's plenty of room for it to move forward. I ended up at 2.5 degrees up on the pinion, 2.5 degrees down on the motor. I'm at 11.5 on the drive shaft. That gives me a 9-degree working angle, which is acceptable. They say when you get up around 10 or past 10, it starts to put a little strain on the U-joints, so I think I'm good. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna just run that. I just gotta take it out and weld it up. I'll probably do that when I disassemble, get it balanced, and we're good on the driveline. So I'm gonna tack the spring perches in, get that locked down, and then I think that's about it. All right, so I'm gonna end this video here. I know I said I was gonna do the roll cage, but this just happened. So I'm waiting for some parts. I'm having some pieces cut out for the roll cage, and I'll show you that in the next video when I do the roll cage. So if you like the video, subscribe, check me out on Instagram, It's a Metal Thing, and I'll see you on the next one.